Welcome to Raising Happy and Thriving Gifted Kids, a daily podcast where you get relatable stories, interesting lessons, and practical tips to help your kids thrive and be happy while enjoying your own life even more. After working with gifted kids for more than a decade, I've always been looking for ways like how to kind of categorize them. Because definitely gifted kids are not a one-size-fits-all. If anybody is coming to you and says, I've got the magic answer on how to easily raise, gifted and talented kids to be happy and thrive and all kinds of stuff, and it's the same for all of them, you have to run for the hills. That is somebody who's trying to squeeze money out of you. Because the reality is so much more nuanced. Just a couple of steps that we've set, even if somebody says, well, I've got a specific program for, profoundly gifted, or I've got a specific program for, the highly gifted, and that's different. Like those generalities, they don't work. Like if you have multiple kids yourself, you've seen this, how different they are. Like even if you just look at the last episode of the podcast, looking at, the difference between a successful gifted, the autonomous gifted, and the at-risk gifted. They are so profoundly gifted that just the suggestion that there will be a one-size-fits-all, like it just blows my mind that people still, go around preaching those kind of things. So what we need to do is level up your knowledge to the point where you can make the distinction to decide what is best for your child, because then you can be the director of, the care that your child gets, instead of having to run to the next expert that says, the answer is mindset, the answer is executive functions, both of which are brilliant suggestions, but they're not the end all and be all. So what I finally came to is the conclusion that it's not like categorizing the kids in itself is the challenge. Like the solution is not to create a better framework of pegging kids into different holes. It's about looking at a child and figuring out what are their support needs. Like where can they thrive, where is their potential, and what support do they need to express that potential? What is the support they need to become happier? And once I made that shift, because I was working in a large region with thousands of kids, and we were like trying to set up policy on how to guide these kids, but I was also at the same time setting up a parent training with, hundreds of parents asking for an approach how to help their kids. And I kept tweaking with all these different, type models and stuff like that, and couldn't figure it out. But when we kind of like took that step away of trying to figure out what is your kid? Is your kid gifted? Is your kid profoundly gifted? Is he type 1, 2, or 3? Or do they have ADD or not? And we dropped all of that away, and I invited professionals, I invited parents to look at, hey, just look at the kid. What does he need? And it turns out you can answer that question. I mean, you need some help in knowing what kind of support needs there are, because there's not an unlimited set, but there are, dozens of them. As you learn them, you can see which ones does my kid need, and how can I help them with that? So making that shift, not like what is my kid and how can I categorize my kid and can I get like an IQ score, but what support does my kid need and how can I provide that? Well, that's become the basis. Like I've actually rewritten a number of my books. I've rewritten entire training programs, created a year-long training program in seeing what are the support needs of my kid, what are the support needs of this kid, this how can this professional guide you, how can a parent raise you? So if you look at it from that perspective, and we're actually going to dive a little bit more deeply into that in the coming episodes, but what are the support needs that your kid had? Like, what does your kid need to thrive? What does your kid need to, be happy, or maybe even just get out of bed today? Some of you are listening to this and wondering, like, how can I make sure they get out of bed today? And, I hope that they're somewhat happy today. And others are wondering, like, how can I, he's going on this programming kick, or he's setting up a company, or he's becoming a chess guru. How can I, make him express his talent the most? So either way is fine, but like, what are the support needs that they have to get there? So, yesterday was a long one. Let's keep it a little bit shorter today. Actually, ask yourself that question. Ask yourself the question as well. What do you need to become alive? What do you need to go to the next level of happiness, of going to the next level of thriving? Because as you do that, as you get that clear and you start filling in those blanks. You start, being clear about what I need and how to organize it. Then you can make the biggest difference for your child altogether. So what are your support needs, and what's one thing you can do today to actually help your kid and help yourself thrive? If you liked this episode of Raising Happy and Thriving Kids, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast in your favorite podcast software. And if you want to dive deeply into all the things you can do to help your kids thrive, be happier while making your own life more enjoyable, go to smartparentingsecrets.com, where you can get free additional training. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and as always, bring out the best in yourself and each other.